everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dynasty Six Pack. We're done talking about rookies. We're not here to talk about injuries, in spite of what the video looks like it says. But we are here to talk about Dynasty players to buy and sell. Now, the NFL draft has ended, and this little intro has ended. We're going to show you the intro video. So here we are, episode 12 of Dynasty Six Pack. Double the episode names. That's great. We're doing well, guys. But not to double the length of this intro, I'm Kyle Senra, and here we are on the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel, Facebook. If you're listening to on the podcast, also wherever you are, subscribe. For those on YouTube, like the video, comment. Check out fantasy6pack.com. Check out the Fantasy Six Pack Discord, where we'll sometimes utilize for the trade of the week. We didn't quite this week, but that's okay. We'll get to that eventually. But before we do, let's get to my co-hosts. First, we've got Rahul Natarajan. How are you doing, Rahul?
Hey, Kyle. Hey, Jamie. Good to see you both again. I wish I was in a better state of mind. Unfortunately, my soccer team, Manchester United, suffered. It's pretty difficult to put into words how crushing of a final loss it was on Wednesday at noon. Of course, a very strange time for any kind of cup final, but it's a crushing loss. So I'm happy to turn over to the only true football in the land, and that is, of course, the NFL and this game we play based off it. So aside from that sadness, I'm doing great because I'm ready to channel the energy in this show. So long-winded way of saying I'm good.
Hooray! Well, we're happy to have you, and we're hoping to have more success than Manchester United's recent success. Let's get back to the true dynasty that it used to be, right? Like, let's not that kind of success.
Exactly.
But there's only one true dynasty master. He's not here, so instead, in his place, we got Jamie Perog. Jamie, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. Like, we got some exciting buys and sells for y'all today. And as always, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and we will be happy to answer them for you.
What's up, my favorite co-host? This random Jamie in the chat doesn't mention who it is. I think we all know who it is.
All my favorites.
This guy keeps changing week to week.
This is the Dynasty Master here in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, hopefully we can give you some players that we think you can acquire at a recent price, sell away if we think their prices are inflated, and hopefully you can build your team that way. And yes, it's been a lot of rookie talk, we know. So I know I purposely avoided rookies. There was definitely a couple rookies I could have been tempted to say as sells, but ultimately wanted to stick to veterans here. These episodes tend to run long, so I'm not going to delay any further, and I'll run right into it with one of the most prolific running quarterbacks in the NFL, and that's Kyler Murray. So this is my buy. Don't say goodbye to Kyler Murray. Say hello and go acquire one of your teams. Now we go back to our second episode. We're going to be referencing that episode of time. There's the foundational tiers, the top two tiers at each position. I think I was the only one who had Kyler Murray in the second tier, I believe, right, guys?
Yeah, so right now I think I have him around 12 overall.
Same.
Like 10 to 12
13,
range.
yeah.
And I think a lot of what we used for valuing players was the website Keep Trade Cut, just to see where the overall dynasty community values these players. And it's I'll say people have spoken a lot about Keep Trade Cut. I know Scott Connors mentioned one of the best things about it is it's very reactionary. Things will change quickly, and especially in season, the dynasty and fantasy football community is very reactionary. So it's a good view of that, because part of it is the information is fed by members of the dynasty community, but it also acts appropriately like them. So we're going to kind of probably reference those prices throughout here. I noticed Kyler Murray, when I went and checked, was QB 14. I'm ranking him like QB 8. Like I even debated, should he be ahead of Justin Herbert? And even Patrick Mahomes is like the QB 6 right behind Joe Burrow. I mean, really, we're talking about him as a rusher. He's just as fast and talented as these guys like Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. He's got the skill sets to even be in that top tier. We've also seen him put up a double-digit touchdown season. And that was year 2. So we're talking 2020. We're talking 5 years ago. So the idea that he's going to reproduce that, he's kind of proven that he's probably not. But he's still a pretty safe floor quarterback. Actually, last year was pretty bad for that. But most of his career, even at Jamie's got the injury picture of Brandon Aiyuk, and we're definitely going to talk about players coming off torn ACLs. Murray's season coming off his torn ACL, which I believe would have been the 2023 season. I'm pretty sure it occurred in 2022. He actually was one of the safest floor quarterbacks. He wasn't really putting up any ceiling performances. Last year kind of flipped. Now, can he kind of recapture what he had been, a weekly safe floor quarterback? I'm kind of banking that yes. Year 2 with Marvin Harrison, maybe that's extra chemistry. They can connect. Another season with Trey McBride and Murray's own rushing ability, like that. Those 2 key weapons and his own ability to gain rushing yards, I think, is a reason that I want to buy on the bounce back. And one player that there might be some contention here, I think, specifically someone who did have this other quarterback in their second tier on our episode 2. Mentioning number 2 a lot. Should have wore the going for 2. I've been delaying because I don't want to upset Jamie too much. But Jamie, I'm saying sell Drake May to go buy Kyler Murray. And I think actually I was going to do this differently. Jamie, if I had Drake May on my fantasy team, dynasty team, you had Kyler Murray, and I went to you and said, Jamie, what do you think the price difference is between Drake May and Kyler Murray? How would you answer that question? Which is a question I kind of like to ask people when I'm not sure where the value difference is. If I came up to you, Jamie, what's the price difference between May and Murray?
Well, I have May up pretty high at like QB 7-8-ish. Murray is my like 12. So there is a teardrop. So I would want like a late second and Drake and Kyler Murray to give you Drake May.
Well, I was thinking the opposite. If I have May and I say just Jamie, what's the price difference?
Well, I will give you Drake May straight up, or I will give you Kyler Murray straight up for Drake May.
And you see, it's funny how you approach that, right? Like you maybe me and my rankings. Like, this is Kyle Senra approaching Jamie, that maybe acts differently. If I was, let's say I'm someone who doesn't value Murray and I approach that, like you'd totally be willing to add to Murray to get to May, right?
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe the 212, 303. Just one of those late second, early third round players.
And as someone who is Murray higher than May, I'll take anything. Like you're going to give me something with Murray, I'll do that any day. And I think that's what makes him a good buy. And Drake May, like that's not a cheap asset. I think you might be a little higher than consensus, but if I remember looking at KTC price, he was in the top 10. I think it was QB9, QB8.
Yeah, I believe even in the consensus on Fantasy Pros, I think he's in the top 10.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things I wanted to be actionable, right? Like Bo Nix, CJ Stroud, these like really young quarterbacks, I don't think are going to be quite the elite fantasy producer that we've seen Kyler be at his peak. And yeah, he's getting a little older. Those guys are younger, but I think I still want to bank on Kyler's ability more than those other guys elevating to levels that we haven't seen before.
But really, is Kyler that old? He's only going to be 28 at the start of the season. He's still young. Like, I don't consider quarterbacks old until they hit like 33, 34.
Yeah, and I mean, we're comparing to like what's Stroud, like 23, 24.
Yeah, 20,
something like that.
24 start of the season.
I mean, how young is Drake May, right? Like, I think he was one of the younger ones coming in too.
Drake May's 22. He'll be 23 start of the season.
So, anyway, I like Kyler Murray as a buy. Rahul, do you want to chime in on the Murray discussion?
I do, and this is coming from someone who has been a Kyler Murray glazer for years. I think last year was I was in the position you are right now, Kyle, like recommending Kyler Murray as my favorite buy and my favorite click, favorite value, so on and so forth. It's very invested in Kyler Murray. I completely resonate with all the pros you have said about Kyler, and even to the question you asked Jamie, I actually think in most leagues you could get more than a late second. I'm thinking even closer to an early second range is what someone with Kyler, the average person with Kyler, would be willing to pay to get to Drake May. And I think the main reason is Murray just has like some kind of like stench on him, and honestly, I'm not convinced he is good enough to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Fantasy football is a completely different game where the rushing he does provide, both the floor and his capacity for big plays. He had, I think, 250-yard plus rushing touchdowns last year. Very iconic because he started celebrating when he still had like 40 yards to go. He'd raise his hand in celebration. But just having watched him very consistently over the last year, I really do question his ability, especially under pressure. There some of his statistics for deep passing when under pressure are absolutely horrific. He is like closer to QB 32 than he is to like QB 10 in some of those statistics. And I think though that can also explain why Marvin Harrison Jr. had a very tough rookie season versus the expectations. Now, at the kind of the price that he is at, I'm still willing to buy into Kyler for all the reasons you have mentioned, and also projecting a little bit that connection with Marv does improve. As you said, Trey McBride takes another step after his big money contract. Offense has another year to gel, but I am a little more hesitant of the long term for Kyler Murray, just because this is a sneaky guy to be replaced. I think at the NFL level, like sooner than you would think from his age.
So
I've heard that before too. Go ahead, Jamie.
just one more thing on Murray. You have to remember there's no Call of Duty coming out this year. So he is going to be straight focused on football. He ain't going to be gaming. And I recently bought him a few days ago. I love the price.
That or Call of Duty. What did you buy?
I bought Kyler Murray.
Okay.
And the price I got on him, like someone sent me an offer. I had the 101, I had the 103, and the 105. And someone sent me Kyler Murray for my 105. I'm thinking in my head, like, wow, like I have Murray in my top 12, right? The 102 was Cam Ward. He's outside my top 16. So why wouldn't I take this 3 picks later? That's got to be a value.
Yeah.
You made an excellent point, Jamie, that I want to focus on. If you're QB needy, don't take Cam Ward 102. Trade it for Kyler Murray, right? Like that's the move you should be.
Yeah.
Because like it feels like if you wanted to go buy Drake May or Bo Nix or CJ Stroud, it might cost you more than just the 102. Like they would demand more. Murray's a guy that can be attained for maybe just a single rookie pick, which I think is amazing. It didn't even cost you the 102. Like you got it.
The thing is, I had the 103. I took Hampton at 103. Yeah, Hampton is a top 5 running back for me, but I would rather have a top 12 quarterback than a top 5 running back in Superflex.
Oh, for sure.
So I would have gave up the 103 for Kyler Murray straight up, and I would have been happy with it.
I mean, if you are like desperate QB needy, you're in a 16-team super. Well, I'm saying like I'm going even further. Like you're in a 16-team Superflex, and you like absolutely need a second quarterback. You don't think I don't think it's wrong to just trade the 101 for Murray. Like if you why take Ashton Genty if you can go get a quarterback? Right? And maybe
16-team Superflex.
It sucks. It's so hard to get quarterbacks.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and like the draft last year reflected it. I'm pretty sure in last year's draft the top 3 picks were all quarterback. It was Caleb, it was Daniels, Drake May went 103. Pretty sure McCarthy went 105. We're sitting at like the 110, hoping one of them would fall, and sure enough, Penix fell. And oh yeah, easy take him there. I don't care who else is on the board. Dunze, Worthy, Bowers doesn't matter. You need the QBs. So
yeah, because the higher the league is, like if it's 16, you want to prioritize those quarterbacks because there's only 32 of them in the league.
Yeah, that leads in theory everyone has the two starters, right? If it's balanced out, but as you come into these dynasty leagues, it's not always balanced out. And those teams that are missing out, it's so hard to get in. So Kyler might be a great way in rookie drafts, for instance, to go get him. I already mentioned these young quarterbacks. The beauty of buying Kyler is he's not even really making the bet of Kyler versus May or Kyler versus Bo Nix. If you're getting a second thrown on top, like that, then you're making like essentially the other managers having to make that bet. Okay, May or Nix or Stroud is better than these 2 assets. That could be 2 starters for the other team. That seems like a great bet to be making. So that's why I think Kyler is just really attainable at QB this year. It's more extreme than last year. The reason, Rahul, that I wasn't touting Kyler as the quarterback to buy last year is because I was touting Jalen Hurts as the QB to buy.
Mhm.
And he wasn't necessarily cheap. Like Murray's going to be a lot cheaper than Hurts was last year. The thing with Hurts last year was the fear of the tush push being banned. And again, we had the announcement today that it wasn't being like the brotherly shove. It will remain a legal play. I might have almost changed the answer like at mid episode if they banned it, because I felt that you'd feel like that would be another drop in Hurts's value like we saw last year, where Hurts was attainable. It wasn't cheap. It went and bought him in a couple leagues. It wasn't cheap, but he was attainable. And it felt like the year before, Hurts was not attainable. Everyone had him, and they were just, there's not a price you can give me that I'll sell him for. And so Kyler's not nearly there. So it makes it almost even a better buy than Hurts was last year, because you're not paying the top price for him. You're actually getting him at a really good value.
I guess just to ask you, Kyle, one more question about Kyler is if he has, I think he finished about maybe like QB 10 to QB 12 in points per game last year. I don't know if you have the stat in front of you, but let's say Kyler has an identical season to the one he just did. Where is he going to be valued in Dynasty?
Well, points per game, he was 12 at
Yeah.
18.1 per game.
Yeah. So QB 12, right? 18 points is like a very replaceable amount. And as you said, he would either be like QB 1 or he'd be like QB like 24. That's just like the Kyler Murray experience last year. Is how do you see his dynasty value going if he has an equivalent season? With like, and with the angle I'm coming from is there are some people who are just like not Kyler guys and like turned off by his like actual like NFL play. How do you see his value like going in 12 months time?
Well, I think the context of what happened last year around like QB landscape in general really influenced that, because we had 6 quarterbacks all
That's a good point. That's
right?
a good
Essentially,
point.
like we saw Penix play a few games and people have thought like that's really good. We haven't seen McCarthy play, but all the other guys, like, here's the thing, like Drake May, and sorry Jay about this, but I thought Drake May finished at like 13 points per game. And it's a little unfair because that includes 2 games where he got absolute zeros because he barely played. I remember calculating if you took those out, it still made it to like 15.2, 15.3, like where Caleb Williams and Lawrence are. But that's still behind where Murray was, and admittingly a really low floor season for him. So, yes, that's more the all to say. I don't think we're going to get 6 quarterbacks hit like we did last year. I mean, we only have 2 first rounders, and one of them is 21st overall, 12th overall, like Bo Nix. So the fact that Daniels, Caleb, May, and Bo Nix all entered the top 12, that's 4 spots that knocked Murray down. Unless, I mean, I know you believe in Cam Ward really strongly, so I'm sure you foresee the scenario where Ward also enters that and maybe knocks him down 1 spot. Maybe Jamie sees Jackson dart that way too, but I don't think we're thinking, like, I don't see a massive drop. If he repeats what he did last year, he'll probably remain pretty close to where he is now. I
That's a good point.
Behind him are like Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott. They're already viewed as these like older, not as mobile quarterbacks anyway. Even though they're outscored, they can probably outscore Murray pretty easily. Like certainly Baker did last year. We've seen Dak have those ceiling seasons. People aren't going to raise their values. Like they're probably even more so than Murray, just dropping and not ever going to recoup.
Yeah, that was actually a fantastic answer. So
we'll see, because I mean, it was pretty strange to see that many quarterbacks actually do well last year. And,
right,
and still maintain, like, gain positive value, not just maintain it.
So I just want to bring up that Murray last year, he was top 10 in pass attempts. He was top 10 in passing yards. He was top 10 in deep ball attempts. And you can get 50 to 60 rushing yards per game out of him at any given time. So I love Murray, man. Don't think I'm not loving him just because I have him lower at 12. He's still a top 12 guy for me.
But again, you've probably got like Bo Nix and well, certainly May and like all these younger guys, right?
Yeah, but if you put a gun to my head and say, would you rather have Bo Nix or Murray? I think I'd rather have Murray, even though I have Bo Nix higher in my ranks by like 1 or 2 spots, just because I don't know if Bo Nix is long for the league. Like after his rookie contract runs out, who knows where he goes? Who knows if he can keep up without Sean Payton? So
why are we just assuming he's not going to have Sean Payton? I mean, unless Sean Payton retires, but I mean, I don't know. Unless he completely flames out and is awful, he's probably going to remain in Denver. Like you already brought him to the playoffs as a rookie, so you got to think Denver is probably going to be inclined to sign. We'll see. That's a little early for right now. Hey, we've seen one-hit wonders happen in the past, and no one's going to put a gun to Jamie's head. There's no hit out on him. It is the Brandon Aiyuk image with the crutches. No one's actually getting hurt here.
Whoa, I don't know.
But we are going to talk about Brandon Aiyuk. And Rahul, that's your dynasty buy.
Yeah, I think after seeing that image, I might have called a hit on Jamie just for the just for the disrespect. But Brandon
I'm the
Aiyuk,
person who made the actual thumbnail. I do not take any credit for any of the violence inflicted upon Brandon Aiyuk, or the fact that it actually kind of looks like he's kind of holding a gun up to Jamie's head. That's pure. That might be my fault. It's a football. So, the concussions are dangerous, so watch your head, Jamie. But Rahul, would love to get the thoughts of your head about Brandon.
Yeah, and I mean, if you watched last week's episode, you probably got a lot of those thoughts already. Brandon Aiyuk, man, this is my favorite buy low right now, and probably end up being the year of this kind of off season. And really, that kind of idea only sparked after hearing just how all over the place we were on Brandon Aiyuk. I think Kyle, you might have said wide receiver 59, and I looked at like this KTC trade. It was equal to Kyle Pitts, and it was just, how have I been misseeing Tyler's market value for a considerable period of time? And let me go on to why I do like Brandon Aiyuk and start with his scoring history. He's been in the league 5 seasons. Of course, he had the ACL injury in week 7 of last year. But prior to that, he was wide receiver 14. This is all half PPR. Wide receiver 14, 23, 24. Wide receiver 24 and 22, wide receiver 17 his rookie year in 2020, and he was wide receiver 51 in 2021, but he was very publicly in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse to start that season. From week 9 on, wide receiver 22. So with that bit of selective stats, I will say this is a player that's always finished as a top 24 option in fantasy football. Now, when you break into his 2023 season a little more, I think this is the season that really projected Aiyuk to, I think at that point, maybe like a borderline 2-3 turn startup asset, I guess, to start last offseason. 2023 really was a phenomenal year for him, where he finished 7th in the league in receiving yards, 1,300 yards on just 105 targets. He was second only to Tyreek in wide receiver PFF grade in 2023, second only to Pickens in yards per reception. He gained a first down on 81% of his receptions. He gained 61 first downs on 75 catches, which is, I mean, it speaks to the kind of player he was. Like, that's baked into there. But first downs per route runs are stats that I really do like to look at, because they kind of tell you about the importance of the player to their actual team on the field. And then he was third in the league amongst wide receivers in success rate, which is certain yards to gain depending on what down you are. So phenomenal season. This came at the same time as San Francisco being bottom of the league in 2023 in pass attempts, second lowest in pass run split percentage. They only rose up to 25th in 2024. And I could see this continuing to go a little bit further. One, Christian McCaffrey is, another year older and another year of being banged up. Those touches could come down. Of course, Garendo, perhaps Jordan James could mix in. Bigger reason why is San Francisco had a lot of key losses in free agency on the defensive side of the ball. I think San Francisco in the last few years have been, kind of that juggernaut on both sides of the field. But this is one year where, even if they drop the league average, I can foresee them being in situations where passing the ball is what they need to do to get back in the game or whatever. So this is when you also start. I clearly prepared for this segment. This is my last point. This is the projection I had for Aiyuk starting last year is that he is the young piece on a team that had, an aging running back, a 30-year-old tight end, and, Deebo Samuel, another, extremely talented player with a lot of success. Now they've lost Deebo, and the other two are a year older, more banged up. You can factor that in or not.
We're saying the same thing again about the running back of the
We're saying the same thing again. I do want to acknowledge, of course, Ricky Pearsall was a first-round pick, and Jawan Jennings truly did have a breakout season with great underlying metrics. But just with the pedigree of Brandon Aiyuk, the player, I do think he comes back in to lead this team in targets again. And I feel like we've got the nuts run out for Aiyuk that we wanted last year, and I don't understand the drop off in value. I will caveat this, and before turning it over to you guys, the 2 points that I would understand. One is the ACL injury, as evidenced in the thumbnail. There's some question about whether he'll even make it back for week 1 as first year production concerns. All very valid. I'm not a medical expert. I can't tell you that, but I do think that's something that's heavily baked into the price. I think more people kind of feel Aiyuk is going to be limited for the season rather than he's going to be full go. The second one, and this again, willing to argue or agree with as y'all present, but 27 this year, he'll be 28 before the next year. He's not the youngest wide receiver out there, and if there's any concern on his long-term dynasty value, like what is a 28-year-old wide receiver who finishes a mid wide receiver 2 really going to be valued as dynasty in dynasty next year if there's not much of a value gain? I also understand that, but I think for the prices that I'm seeing right now, I would try to send any early second for Brandon Aiyuk. I personally would even have him over Matthew Golden or Emeka Egbuka, who are kind of that like second tier of rookie wide receivers. I'd certainly sent Trey Harris, Jaden Higgins, Luther Burden for Brandon Aiyuk. That's like kind of like the I guess the leverage trade I'd look to make. Also on a rebuilding team, I'd send like any veteran running backs that you want to get those points off. At these prices, I'm feeling pretty confident about Brandon Aiyuk. So yeah,
I think the last point you made is the best point. A rebuilding team might actually be inclined to get Aiyuk because you're not as concerned about this 1 year production. In fact, you might lack of production, like from this first year coming off the torn ACL. You might almost encourage that, like, oh, I'm already trying to tank for the 2026 101 anyway. So him missing games actually it helps me in a certain sense. That's points I'm not scoring. So
that's exactly where I was going with that. But on contending teams, on teams that might need an extra piece, I feel pretty confident. Like injury, slow start to the season aside, I think by the time you get to like weeks 13 through 17, when money is made in fantasy championships, I think Aiyuk will be at a level where you're going to jam into a lot of lineups. That's giving like 12 plus months to the injury, and there is usually a 1 year production drop off. But I think for contending teams, take the value now, and he might turn into that kind of like production by the end of the year when you need to win your championship.
You almost think it is the best buy window week 1 when he's inactive, like, and he's still recovered. Like that might be almost because those teams that want to contend right away, if they've still got him. But if there's any positive report, I suppose if there's positive reports that he's in training camp and he's getting workouts, maybe that's still like, I don't know, does that probably raises his price, but there's also give the confidence to buy further.
The price has fallen so low that if you do want to wait on those reports too, like I do still think you can make a deal with someone who had the Brandon Aiyuk experience last year and just wants to kind of get off that ship, or thinks they're a contender that probably can't rely on him. There's definitely going to be multiple points in this summer to acquire Brandon Aiyuk.
Okay, so here's the thing: if you're happy with like 5 to 8 fantasy points per game, go ahead and buy Aiyuk, because he in the 7 games that he did play last year, 6 of them were under 10 points. And if I did the math, they probably averaged like 5-6. He only had 1 game over 10 points. And it was 22 points, but he needed 12 targets to get that. So you mentioned the ACL, but you forgot to mention the MCL. So he has ACL and MCL. All right. So unless you think he's a Adrian Peterson type level player where he's going to come back right away and smash, it was in October that a year from October is probably like where he would probably come back, right? But it's going to take some time for him to get acclimated and healthy again. So my point is why wouldn't you wait until he comes back and disappoints you even more? Then you buy him even lower than you are right now. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense, because I would buy him in like December, not right now, not October, But in December, when the injury is going to be fully healed, and then you could start seeing 100% Brandon Aiyuk, then he might be a top 15 to 20 any given week. But right now, I have to put him outside my top 30. I don't see him returning to health right away. They already have Juwan Jennings. They drafted a first or early second round pick last year, right?
First round, yeah.
First round in a receiver. They have George Kittle. They still have CMC. You know, they're not going to throw him to the wolves right away. So wait and be patient with him. Then buy him even cheaper right now. Because imagine, like, I see people buying Chris Godwin at a way lower price. And Chris Godwin was the #1 overall receiver last year from weeks 1 to 6. And he's only 2 years older than Aiyuk. So would you rather have Chris Godwin or would you rather have Brandon Aiyuk both coming off injuries?
I obviously, no surprise, would still go with Brandon Aiyuk there. And I definitely hear you. And I think the only concern with like waiting even longer to purchase is at a certain point in a Brandon Aiyuk owner's minds, like as you like get up to like week 10, week 12, like everyone is gonna price in like, okay, he's returning to health, he's gonna return to form. Now, 6 months out from week 10, week 11 is when I only do that based on like the price recommendation. I do want to I'll go back to you, Kyle, next, because you obviously had him lower than both of us. But I think now is I see the kind of price now where I'll still go and take that risk on his health, on his slow start.
I think I'd go Godwin. I'm less concerned with the ankle injury than I would be the knee injury. Still a concern, but also we saw Godwin just smashing production-wise. Now, to your point, Rahul, we saw you do that same thing in 2023. But yeah, Jamie is right. He had one of these games in full PPR. He had 9.8 points, so he almost reached double digits. So it was almost 2 games last year. But to that point, that 9.8 points was the second best result last year.
Yeah. I would sorry. And I obviously, again, selective stats. I left out the 2024 production. I would contextualize it, with my rose tinted glasses. I would contextualize it as a season that he didn't practice all off season, and what the contract I think was signed with like weeks to go before the regular season.
Yeah, it's weird seeing them sign Brock Purdy this early in the offseason because they've notoriously done it. Ayuk, Debo, they did it with Nick Bosa as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
After the preseason, that like 2-week period between the preseason and the regular season, seems like that's when they were getting it done. So
yeah. So I think if I were to ignore the most recent season, which is never one you want to ignore, is I would give him the leniency of no practice at all, and then a San Francisco team that was a mess last year, and then another injury cut short his season. But that's not to say everything you said was correct, which it was.
I love that we get the thumbnail image throughout the whole video with Jamie, but I mean, for the idea of make these trades now, I agree with you, Rahul, in that you probably should do it before he returns. And you can maybe take those rose-colored glasses, tint them a little darker, and say, we've already made one Call of Duty, Tom Clancy. I don't know, but there's Tom Clancy video games that are military style. So we're going to go make another one and say Brandon Aiyuk is the hunt for Red October, in that you probably want to buy him before October. You want to already have him on your team. So when he's healthy and those spikes hit, that's when, once
what
that happens, his price skyrockets, and those contending teams that have him maybe don't even want to sell him.
What if he never comes back to what he used to be, or what we think he's going to be?
That's why I've got him ranked there. But I'm saying, the argument to Aiyuk, to the point of the episode, if you are going to buy him, you should do it before he returns from injury. If you're going to make that decision, because the second he's full practice participation this week, that price goes up. So if you're going to make the decision to be convicted to buy Aiyuk, right now is probably not the worst time to do it, admittedly. I still think the most opportune time is risk it and hope he's inactive for a week or two. Those will be the moments when those managers might panic sell. because it's like early in the season, they want to get those wins. That would be the easiest time. Or as it gets close to preseason, he's still not practicing. Like the closer that risk of him, like I guess the more that risk of him missing time becomes more of a reality, the lower that price seems to go. But if he ends up on a quick track to that recovery, maybe now is the best buy low period. So that does take some conviction on the knee injury, and maybe reach out to TFS Doc, the fantasy sports doc, and he might have some better answers on the clarity of what we can expect. I still think again, if you're targeting October as his return, you probably want to buy in September, as at the latest.
Yeah,
anyway, that's a good point there. We'll keep talking about wide receivers here. Jamie just said Jerry Jeudy. Well, he didn't just say it. He mentioned it on the show sheet last week, but I just put it up on the screen. So, Jamie, will you take this off here? Take off. Yeah. Take off like a wide receiver. Run the route way better than I'm running the route to get into this transition. So, Jerry Jeudy, Jamie.
Yeah, this is very surprising as a Browns fan that actually realizes the Browns freaking suck. Why am I buying Jerry Jeudy, huh? Well, when I look into his price right now, the consensus rankings, they have Jeudy in like that Ibuka, Jameson Williams, Mike Evans type tier. Keep Trade Cut has them in that like mid second round range tier. So you're looking at rookies like Trey Harris, Jaden Higgins, Tootin range. So like mid second seems to be like that right spot for Jeudy, right? I'm willing to give up guys like Chuba Hubbard, David Montgomery straight up to get me some Jerry Jeudy. But if you find the right trade partner, I don't think you have to pay that price for him because people are sleeping on him. You can probably get him way cheaper. Like he's priced outside of that top 30, 35 receivers in Dynasty. And not enough people realize Jerry Jeudy actually broke out last season. Do you guys remember this? Like, even with all that chaos in Cleveland with the quarterback changes and all that, the Browns still, they have been top 5 in pass attempts the last 2 years in a row. And Jeudy quietly put up like 90 catches last year on 145 targets for over 1,200 yards. That's a career high for him, right? So sure. if you look at his overall, that puts him at wide receiver 24 overall at 14.2 points per game. But in the games that without Deshaun Watson, he was a legit wide receiver 1 in our lineups. He was averaging 18.5 points per game, and that put him at wide receiver 8 overall, right? Now you'll have to think Elijah Moore is gone. Like, oh, Elijah Moore, he sucked, but Elijah Moore got 6 targets per game last year, and the Browns didn't add any real competition at wide receiver.
Did add Deontay Johnson.
Oh, come on! Like I just said, they didn't add any real additions to the wide receiver room. Like Judy's path to a volume is still going to be wide open this year. They brought back Joe Flacco, where Joe Flacco was a top 5 quarterback 2 years ago on the Browns when he got off the couch, and he's coming back to Cleveland. He's going to feed Jerry Jeudy. Like I just said, he put up wide receiver 8 overall numbers without Deshaun Watson. And you're getting him outside of the top 30 wide receivers in Dynasty. That's a steal for me. I don't see why people are overlooking him. So maybe you guys can enlighten me on why Jerry Jeudy's being faded so much.
Well, Jamie, I'm not going to push off it like a wide receiver, but I'm going to push back on one point. And you are correct. He did break out from a fantasy points perspective last year. But one aspect where he didn't break out last year is target share, because he broke out as a rookie with a 21.2% target share as a rookie, which is crazy. And he's never dipped lower than 19.6. His problem's always been catching. He's had good target amount, but his catch rate's always been pretty bad. And so in addition to everything you just said about his role with the Browns, you know, assuming Joe Flacco is the quarterback at least a good portion of the season, you at least get like a high volume passing offense as well to accompany him, and that's where you're going to get those big performances. But I also just wonder, did Jerry Jeudy just get better at catching? Like, is that something that's being overlooked? And it's all just being put on, oh, he only broke out because Jameis Winston. But this break could also be Jerry Jeudy's ability to catch the football has gotten better. And now he's a better version of himself than he's ever been. And we should buy into that. Jamie, how high do you have Jerry Jeudy ranked in Dynasty? Among the receivers, anyway. Because you're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. So you mentioned the catch rate, right? If you compare his actual catch rate to the true catch rate, which it divides the total receptions of catchable targets, it
takes away the bad passes,
the bad throws. Last year,
which
he had
with those quarterbacks,
87.5% true catch rate last year. His actual was 62. So,
but the thing, 62 is actually an improvement on his normal catch rate, right? But I also just think he has gotten better at catching.
I agree. And now that you're gonna, if you give him an actual quarterback that can throw him the ball, I think this guy has unlimited ceiling. And we're gonna look back next year. We're gonna be like, why did we put him at wide receiver 40 in Dynasty? He's only 26. He's still got a good 4 or 5 years left in the league. And I think he could jump up to that top 20. Like I said, he had wide receiver 8 numbers without Deshaun Watson.
So curious, where do you have him ranked? Because I'm pretty high. I want to see if you're even higher than I am.
Oh, man. Hold on. I don't have my actual. So I have him right around like the Matthew Goldens, DK Metcalfs, Amika Ibuka area. So that would be like what, early second round for the rookies. I have them above Aiyuk. I'd rather have Jeudy,
for sure.
but you're paying way less for Aiyuk, or way less for Jeudy. Like getting him for that mid to late second, as opposed to Rahul. You said Brandon Aiyuk early second.
Early second.
Yeah,
any of the rookie wide receivers. Yeah.
I feel like I think that you're probably paying comparable prices. That's probably right around what Judy's going to go for.
Especially, so I'd say about number 30 to 35 range.
He's currently my wide receiver 22.
Oh, I love that dude! Wow.
So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
I knew I liked you for a reason.
He was going to be one of my buy candidates until you put him on the show sheet.
Yeah, no, like wow, you have him even higher than I do. So I love that, man.
Because I think one other aspect too. I think we were all expecting Travis Hunter to be there, and okay, he's the alpha in the room now. He completely survived the draft. They didn't bring anyone in. To Jamie's point, Deontay Johnson, like that's the big target earner through his career that's coming in to compete.
So let me ask you something.
Even Cedric Tillman, right? We talked about Cedric Tillman as a breakout last year. His target share was 12.2%, which I think he could replicate it even better. But it still shows that Judy's the target alpha on this team. So I think the fact that he's gone up in my rankings since the draft, and he's someone that I probably had around in wide receiver 30, just inside the top 30, maybe before the draft. And he's gone up. I'd rather have him over Ibuka or any of the other receivers that aren't named McMillan and Hunter in this class.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Kyle. So you had him at 22, and that's right around where I have like the Zay Flowers, the George Pickens, DJ Moores, Devonta Smith, Jordan Addison type players, even Jalen Waddle lower. So, like, would you put any of those players I just mentioned over Jerry Jeudy?
Yeah, you named a few that I have over. Flowers, Addison, and Smith. I've got all three of those ahead of Jeudy.
All right.
Waddle is one spot behind Jeudy. Another guy who, as a rookie, earned a massive target share. So has shown the whole career he's going to earn targets. Last year wasn't as great, but
yeah,
there are a lot of bad seasons. I think Waddle can bounce back. So I think that's a pretty good range. I definitely would rather have him over some of those other guys like DJ Moore and Pickens.
So I've never been called out on a
sorry, Rahul. I would rather have Jeudy over Aiyuk. You see, was that like a like death stare into the camera when Jamie said that?
It was a tactical lead into the camera. I guess. I mean, I really like where. I mean, I like this pick, Jamie. My one concern is the Browns are kind of in a situation where they could possibly have worse quarterback play than the Deshaun Watson level quarterback, play that they had. It would be a brave man to bet on who's the starting quarterback, who's throwing passes to Jerry Jeudy in the Cleveland winter during your fantasy playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Then that's my concern. And Joe Flacco, yeah, top 5 QB at least in fantasy, and played pretty well in real life when he was on the Browns, but he was pretty mediocre on the Colts. He played an extended period of games last year, so I would only have a concern that the Joe Flacco experiment is going to last like 50% of the season at most, and that's when Jeudy becomes like a risky start week to week, even with that target share is my only concern.
Yeah, so no, so 2 days ago, I was called out on the Mind of Mansion podcast on Player Profiler by the Podfather himself. He said, Jamie Perog, you said Jerry Jeudy has better quarterback play this year. He was like, you can't get any better than Jameis Winston chucking the ball down the field. That made me think. I'm like, you're kind of right there, buddy. So I'm glad he called me out. So I kind of tempered my expectations on him. And I still think Joe Flacco is going to be a lot better than what Deshaun Watson was.
Of course.
Maybe not as good as Winston. But still,
it's not Flacco I'm concerned with. It's certainly not any version of Flacco from the last 2 years. Not even the great one. But what if it's Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders or like Kenny Pickett throwing him the ball in your fantasy football playoff, right?
The Browns can't be that stupid. Oh wait, they are. Never mind.
I knew where that was going there too. Wait a second. To that point, Pickett, we've seen him not be a touchdown producer, and there's no guarantee Gabriel or Sanders is in.
Yeah.
Now there's chances. I think honestly at this point I might almost take the unknowns of both of those rookies over Pickett. But if it's early enough for the season, the Browns might not think that either. They might
let me ask you this:
early in the season.
Pittman, would you rather have Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton?
In Dynasty, I would still have Jeudy. I have him at like wide receiver 36. Where I do disagree with what you said is I would actually rather have certainly Chuba Hubbard. David Montgomery starts to be a little bit of a push, and just the pure reason is if I'm considering the side of those running backs, it's I want the production, and I think both of those running backs should give you more production than Jerry Jeudy in your flex spot, for example. So mid-second, Jerry Jeudy, that's like fair enough. I'd probably go maybe the arbitrage Darnell Mooney for even cheaper. But yeah, that's just my concern.
Darnell Mooney's probably a lot cheaper than anyone we're talking about today. That's actually a pretty good buy to enter our buy section.
I love Darnell. If I was in a situation where Hubbard was my RB2, yeah, I'm not selling Hubbard for Jerry Jeudy. But if Hubbard, we got him in like the second, third rounds of our rookie drafts, and if we're holding him,
yeah,
then he might be your RB4. So if he's your RB3 or 4, I might consider if I needed a receiver, like if you start 3 receivers in a league, and I might consider that.
So, Jamie, were there any other thoughts you wanted to share about Jerry
Jeudy? Browns are only going to win 2 games this year. They're going to be playing from behind a lot. They're going to be chucking the ball. You can't beat that, man.
All right. Well, I guess we'll find out how often Flacco starts. Again, assuming he is the week 1 starter. But I guess thanks. We ended on Darnell Mooney. Just gave you an extra one, but this says bye to the buy section. Hello to the sells. We're saying sell Keon Coleman. I'm so sorry, Jeff. Didn't wear the GF2 hat already.
Well, if Jeff listened,
49ers player, we got it's precious 49ers player, all banged up and injured on the screen, and now we're saying sell Keon Coleman. Rahul just left in protest.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Oh, Jamie left too. Wow.
No,
Okay.
so if Jeff would have listened
man,
to me in the first place, you wouldn't need to sell Keon Coleman because you wouldn't have even have drafted Keon Coleman. Come on, what are we doing here?
yeah, you should know what I did and drafted Xavier Leggett instead. Oh wait.
Oh my God, no.
I did just sell Leggett in a second for Jaden Reed in a third. All the picks for 2027, so
that's insane. Man, no, I seen Keon Coleman go before like Lad McConkey in drafts. It's like, what are you guys doing? Come on.
Oh, well, pre-draft, I definitely would have. I did not like Lad McConkey before the NFL draft.
No, Dynasty, people were taking Keon Coleman.
I'm saying, like, if you did your rookie draft before the NFL draft, I totally would have taken Keon Coleman over.
No, so actually, Keon Coleman rose for me. I had him in the third round area pre-draft, but as soon as he landed on the Bills, I rose him to that like mid-second round.
Oh, he was always like a early second, borderline first for me.
Wasn't a big fan of him.
Same.
Yeah, no, he had a decent production profile. So speaking as someone who was buying in on Keon Coleman, just like Jeff Lambert again. Sorry, Jeff. Is that going to be? Is Sorry Jeff going to be like? I know on other Six Pack shows, Joe has the "Suck It Keith" thing. I think that's directed at Keith Fleming, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, Keith, or "Suck It Keith." I don't know. Sorry, Jeff. That's our new hashtag. Hashtag sorry, Jeff. But yeah, Keon Coleman is a sell.
And hashtag suck it, Jeff. Or sorry, Jeff.
I mean, Jeff. Sorry. Hey, we all met because we're all like going for two, so we owe Jeff Lambert quite a lot. So I won't go that far. We're already like ripping down Keon Coleman on him and ripping him for taking Keon Coleman so much. But the point remains, like he did not have a great rookie season, and now I guess the one good news is the Bills didn't really replace him. But I also think what worked for the Bills last year, and they had success doing it, and it was throwing to Khalil Shakir. And so when I was looking through KTC for who my sell was going to be, because I centered pretty quickly on Kyler as the buy, and we did, collectively, Jamie and Rahul didn't talk about any quarterbacks, so I also thought, okay, that's going to be a good variety. Let's get that different position in there. Didn't want to overdo it on receivers, but then when I was going through the wide receiver list, I couldn't really find a tight end I absolutely wanted to sell. So let's just look at receivers. And I noticed that on KTC, Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir were separated by like 2 wide receiver spots. And so it instantly gave me my sell and what you should buy. If the price difference between Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir is this, give me Khalil Shakir every single time. He just got 100 targets last year, and the team went to the AFC Championship game. The best result they've gotten with Josh Allen. I mean, they've been there before, but they haven't done better than that. So I think that I don't see any reason why the Bills are incentivized to go away from Khalil Shakir. So if you can add a third to Keon Coleman to get Khalil Shakir, then I think you gotta do that. go get Khalil Shakir. I think that's maybe just adding an extra buy more than anything. I just feel like, anyway, Rahul, you're probably going to throw in a lot of like data to this, the sports business. Like the year one receivers that don't hit a certain threshold, there's not a lot of them that tend to be fantasy relevant success. And I think Coleman fell below that threshold we would like to see. Actually, I have the points per game data here. I can easily look it up.
I think the threshold was 525. It's usually 525 yards as a rookie. I don't think he...
In full PPR, he averaged 8.6 fantasy points per game, which is even less than Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah. But you know what? The 525 mark, he actually had 556, so I guess I'm in on Keon Coleman.
So we're talking about these thresholds, and he's just barely hitting them, right? Like, he's not thriving like some of these other receivers or Neighbors and Thomas again. And I mean, he's a second rounder, right? Janie brought up the name earlier, Lad McConkey, like how much better that second rounder is doing. Looking to be like the target alpha on his team. I think it's going to be really tough for Keon Coleman to ever be ahead of Khalil Shakir, let alone also including Dalton Kincaid, who, in spite of a disappointing season, actually had a higher target share last year than he did year one. So it just was incredibly inefficient, but I'm not ready to give up on Dalton Kincaid yet. I'd much rather, like, if you could transition Coleman into a Kincaid or a Shakir in any way, I'd rather invest in those pieces in the Bills' passing offense. Now, startup price. So Vic Zed, I'm Canadian, so of course I'm gonna say it's Vic C, isn't it? Sorry, Vic C. Unless you are Canadian as well, but you probably appreciate that I started with the Vic Z. You guys love that band, right? ZZ Top. That's how we call them in Canada. We don't actually say that. I mean,
That's
I
enough
say
out
that.
of you.
I say that as a joke, and I'm wearing the Letterkenny shirt. I'm not actually from Letterkenny. Well, I guess technically so. Just drafted Coleman, 906, so 102nd overall in a 12-team superflex. And I mean, I imagine Khalil Shakir went way earlier than that, right? So, like, for the comparison, like this is one where I was shocked by that KTC price. Feels like that's probably in line. I'd have to see again where that was.
102? I'd be surprised. Is Coleman like a top 100 player in KTC?
I doubt that.
He wasn't
highly
even
doubt it.
So yeah, maybe that might be a little early, but yeah, I think
a little.
I mean,
sorry, Vic.
I would say about 60 picks too early, man.
You're watching
He's 115.
The right
He's 115. So
I have him at
not too far.
151.
I'll have to check my overall too.
Man,
I haven't. My overall isn't as detailed as my.
I'd rather have Marvin Mims over Keon Coleman.
I guess as probably the person who's going to be highest on Coleman out of the three of us, I'll chime in with like a clear price, especially if your rookie drafts haven't happened yet. But any pick from like the 212 onwards, like I don't mind like trying to see what Coleman can get you in a deal. Coleman could even be like maybe a better way to acquire Coleman is like toss him in as like at the end from your trade like partner, just like, hey, will you just like toss a Coleman in here instead of like a third? And the reasons why. Khalil Shakir is actually a great way to like make this point, but the Bills are inundated with a lot of these smaller guys or players who like really work well out of the slot. Khalil Shakir and even Elijah Moore, which is a surprising buy or addition to their team, they do similar things. Dalton and Kincaid was like always the profile was like you're just getting a big slot wide receiver in a tight end. Now, Keon Coleman is a big guy, like he's shown great yak ability in the NFL, though that's probably not what I would have highlighted from his profile. It's more the contested catches. And that's something that the Bills have really been looking for, that downfield weapon. They added Josh Palmer, who arguably Palmer is like a better NFL wide receiver than Keon Coleman, but this is also a player who came in as a pretty raw prospect. Just maybe from his interviews, he kind of, I'm going to make like a negative connotation of a guy I've never met, but Keon Coleman, like I could see if he needed a little like more time in like the film room or like at an NFL like practice level to like get up to speed. He also had a wrist injury, at least, if not another injury. So I would actually say that this is a guy who could have the ceiling to jump to a productive fantasy wide receiver. And of course, I play a lot of half PPR, Kyle, Jamie, you guys know this. PPR, Khalil Shakir instantly becomes more appealing, but maybe half PPR, that's where I'll take the yards, the touchdown upside over like what is going to be like a very like a common 10 points in your lineup for Shakir. So put Shakir aside, I'd still take the gamble at that like early third price point on Keon Coleman.
So let me ask you this. Early third, Mason Taylor, Terrace Ferguson, Arroyo. Would you rather have those tight ends over Keon Coleman?
Tight end premium, I'll go with the first two, Taylor and Ferguson. Non-tight end premium, I'll take Keon Coleman. But that's kind of the cutoff where like, the 212 mark, that's like they're probably like my 212 and 301 is like Taylor and Ferguson. So right around
anywhere from the 212 to the 304 would be like that range.
Like I would prefer Keon Coleman, a Jalen Noel, to give you like a very direct.
I think
example.
I still want to bet on the
Noel.
second. See, I think I'm with Rahul. Actually, I don't know. Where are they in my rankings? I'm not sure about that. You really push me because I think in theory, the second rounder in Coleman, like there are things to like about his profile.
But there's also things a lot to hate because he only gets like 4 targets a game and he only catches 50% of those targets.
We can talk about hating profile. Jalen Noel's production profile in college is pretty awful. Like that's why I've been so low on him kind of throughout the draft process. So I actually, it looks like I do have that Jalen Royals, AMN, or Noel best tier just ahead of Keon Coleman.
So I have Coleman around the Darnell Mooney's, Jalen Coker
Oh,
Jalen
Yeah, I have
McMillan.
Coleman one spot ahead of Coker, so I think that is fair. So
I like give
Hey,
me a
I think
player like
sell.
I'd
I
rather
think,
have Cedric Tillman over
Mm.
a Keon Coleman.
and I think that's why sell
do
high
too.
probably still is the conclusion because we're all naming like ranges. I'm actually completely fine with Keon Coleman and like buying Coleman, but KTC, he's one spot ahead of Devontae Adams. He's ahead of Cortland Sutton. Like that. Okay, at that point, then I'm starting to get a little worried. He's ahead of like productive veteran RBs. So sell high. It's not very high, but I think still just judging that market value, I think I'm on your conclusion, Kyle.
So now, Vic, now that you've taken Coleman in the startup draft, I mean, maybe wait till after draft, but this might be something where you sell Coleman at some point in the offseason on the hype for, it might be tougher to get players for him, but getting future picks. Like we're talking about him being worth a late second. Let's just look at 26 picks. Could you get a second and a fourth? Give yourself
No.
2 extra assets to trade? Is that something you think's attainable? Like that might be something I'd look into, Vic, and
Like
try
for
and
people like this that reach on Coleman that took him in late first, early second of rookie drafts, or 100th overall in a startup. That's a big reach. They're not going to want to sell him because you're not going to get the value. No one's going to buy him for that price. They're going to buy him for 150th overall or third round capital. Not that late.
There
first,
might be
early
other
second.
people that are. You got to find a Jeff Lambert that's really likes Keon Coleman, right? Like Vic might not be the only person in their league that.
So you did mention
right?
you did mention that they brought in Josh Palmer, right? A better receiver than Keon Coleman as of right now. 5 years from now, like maybe Coleman does break out 5 years from now. So you'd have to hold him if you drafted him. But they also brought in an Elijah Moore. Like I mentioned earlier, he did get 6 targets in the Browns offense. And you got to remember, Elijah Moore's best comparable player is Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett broke out at the exact same age Elijah Moore is now. And look how we valued Lockett in the past.
Lockett was always undervalued, and
yes.
And by the time he started producing, everyone was like, he was too old, so we're just gonna devalue him because of his age.
So he's 26. He broke out at 26. Elijah Moore is 26, same age. They compare to each other very well. So I would rather go in
and I think
on Elijah Moore.
That's actually interesting because Elijah Moore had a good rookie season, and if I remember correctly, Lockett had a lot of touchdowns as a rookie. Now, I think it was something like 10 touchdowns as a rookie, but over half of them were on kick returns. But he showed like this productive breakout. And if you counted those touchdowns, maybe not necessarily the return yards, if you count all those touchdowns, he really broke out as a rookie. Kind of a little bit like Moore did, but then their true like week in, week out consistent fantasy value breakout did happen later. So that's a good point, Jimmy. I mean, just like Keon Coleman, Elijah Moore is a second round pick. So that profile, we really like it. I think it was even more touted as a prospect than Coleman was. So good luck, Vic. I mean, to be fair, Vic, if you believe in Coleman and you believe the breakout's coming, there is, you don't have to sell him just because we're saying to sell on the show. But I think if you could build a team that doesn't rely on Coleman, I don't think there's any problem getting out for, again, a future second plus something else. And that's picks that you could use next year to draft other rookies or trade during the rookie draft. That could also be a flexible asset that you trade in season. That there might be a lot of people that don't like Keon Coleman. If you could find the 1 or 2 people that does, there might be a lot more managers willing to sell you a good player for a second than they would Keon Coleman. So just about getting the flexible asset to if you're competing, allow you to buy those pieces in season.
I see the upside. The ceiling is there. Keon Coleman is like the perfect profile for ceiling player, but there are a lot of obstacles for sure.
Well, we haven't given much clarity because we've disagreed on almost everything. So people, to be fair, like provided clarity in terms of good topics and points. So you just gotta choose what path you believe in. And you know what? When this one was put on the show sheet, when Rahul said Breece Hall's my sell, I knew this was gonna just have wild reactions. I mean, Jamie preemptively left the show before we even got to this point. But Rahul, sell us on Breece Hall as a sell.
Yeah. Curious that Jamie has disappeared. I know, like, we've mentioned Breece Hall and his ranking in our dynasty rankings like, a couple times over the last 11 episodes. But Breece Hall is a running back that I am extremely concerned about from a dynasty value point of view, in the sense that this is a running back with considerable value, where 1-for-1 you could still flip him for a cornerstone dynasty asset. But I don't think the production is going to match up to where he's currently valued. To start really with, like, my target is a trade that I actually completed while my rookie draft was ongoing. I traded Breece Hall away for the 105 and picked Tet McMillan. And that's one where I just wanted to do, like, what I saw was like a value insulation trade on a team that actually had Aiyuk, had Tank Dell, 2 wide receivers taken out by injury. I wanted to flip that RB and convert that into that, elite rookie wide receiver prospect value. And at that price range, I'm completely fine cashing out of Breece Hall, who, phenomenal player coming out of college. He sparked very early in his rookie season for an unfortunate ACL tear, and then he came back to put up RB6 production, both in half PPR and PPR. Probably segues my next point, but RB6 points per game in both formats. Until last season, where he ended up as the RB18 in points per game. My big concern with Breece Hall is how much of his production was coming from his receiving work. And receiving yards, yes, but Breece Hall in his elite RB6 season, he led the league with 76 catches. That was one more than Alvin Kamara, who missed 3 games that year. But that was the peak of the Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara PPR scam scheme, right? This year, he had the 4th most running back catches. For context, Devon Achane, who, the newest PPR scam on the block, he had 78 catches. He matched Breece Hall, and Devon Achane had identical catches in their offenses in those elite seasons. Now enter the Jets, going from Aaron Rodgers in the year before is some combination of Zach Wilson, and like QBs are probably not even on an NFL roster, like perhaps a Tim Boyle game. But they're going to Justin Fields. They're going from like check down merchants to a running quarterback who will not just absorb more of the team's opportunities, but you'd expect the check down volume specifically to go down. Like, surely passing yards with Aaron Rodgers wasn't very good. The check down volume for a quarterback who's open to scramble is going to be a lot lower for Breece Hall. And this is going to take away a significant chunk of what gave his fantasy value. Just watching Breece Hall last year too, man, another year, one more year. Yes, we are removed from the ACL, but there just was a sense that an elite burst he had as a prospect coming out of college just dropped off a little bit. There's some like certain home runs that he just couldn't get over the line, and that's like probably the least strong of the worst point that I have to make. But I'll come into maybe the medium point between receiving and breakaway speed. Aaron Glenn, the new head coach of the New York Jets, coming over from the Lions, he was asked about Breece Hall specifically, kind of his like mental state and his running back room. And Glenn said, I think mentally Hall is in a good place, but I would say that we have 3 running backs on this team that we're going to utilize as much as possible. They're all big men. They can run. They're violent. They're physical. He's alluding to Braylon Allen, who probably the one I choose as the big man, and Isaiah Davis. There's a chance this becomes just like a nasty committee, and those like 3 points that Hall was getting from checkdowns go away. It just makes me very concerned of what is a volatile situation. I could see him go the way of like Javonte, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris just for a few years ago, and being like 1-2 turn picks. Breece Hall isn't there, but I could see his value crater in such a manner. Yeah, man. So at that cash out point that I mentioned, the 105, maybe you guys have some better options. 106, 107, like I'd probably take Judkins and Henderson over Breece Hall at this point. I'm sure you could find a cash out value like Josh Jacobs plus an asset, and you get that production and you kind of move away from the volatility. I'd be looking to make all sorts of those trades.
I mean, so if you're really going win now, like, can you somehow get a CMC with all his injury concerns, and sell them on Breece Hall being a younger player, even though he's about to end his rookie contract? Can you get a Derrick Henry with that same principle, and you just think like that points production I'm going to get this year is going to help me win more than Breece Hall. Because I totally agree with you on the Fields. I guess the only pushback is Fields doesn't really have a good second option to throw to. So it might end up still being Breece Hall anyway, but there is more risk that it's not him. So, Jamie, you were about to make a point and I rudely interrupted.
Yeah, so with the win
As
now,
someone who loves Breece Hall, you still admitted you love that Breece Hall trade.
oh yeah, for Tet, like I love young receivers over running backs, so they are right back to back for me. So that's a great trade.
I know how much you love
mentioned
Henderson too. Like
yeah, so you mentioned Henderson. I have them back to back right now, and I could see Henderson being over Breece Hall. So if I was at the 105, and I was like, well, I'll give up Breece Hall for the 105. Now I have the option to pick Henderson, who is a year and a half younger. And I also have the option to pick Tet, who could be a great receiver for the next 10 years in Dynasty. So to me, that's the perfect area. I would buy Breece Hall and I would also sell him. It's a thin line. Depending on what your like team needs are, your team builds, I would actually, if you're a contender, I would look to get Saquon Barkley for Breece Hall straight up. I'd be like, hey, I'm a contender. Give me Saquon
I would
Barkley.
try that. I would definitely try that. I don't know if you're going to get that done.
Give me Saquon Barkley because, I mean, they're right back to back in rankings. So why wouldn't someone that's a rebuilder want a running back that's 4 years younger and can possibly go to a different team? Like, what if Breece Hall went to the Bears? Then he would be a smash top 5. Like, I would probably put Breece Hall over like a Devin A-Chain, Hampton, like right in that Gibbs area.
I wouldn't. I'm easily taking A-Chain.
You went to the Bears with Ben Johnson? Come on. Like, how could you not put Breece Hall in that area?
Aren't we criticizing Colston Loveland and Luther Burden for the fact that it's a crowded room? Like, to Rahul's point.
Oh, I didn't know they were running backs. I thought they were receivers.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But Rahul's point was Breece Hall's best seasons have come because he's so involved in the passing game. Like, I want him to go to a situation where he's going to be a clear number 2 option in the passing. Like, to be fair, he might be that on the Jets. It's just we're worried about the quarterback doesn't throw down to the running back. Even if the running back is more talented, they'll still go to the receiver.
So
Williams kind of had him too. Like, he's sort of extending the plays and always looking downfield. Like, he's not like I'm not sure. Like, DeAndre Swift's going to give us a really good litmus test, Jamie, because you might be right. If Swift comes out as this insane pass catcher, and they say, "Well, you know what? We'll move on from Swift and get Hall anyway," like that could be a good thing. But we'll see. Like we're going to find out what a Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams offense looks like, how that it looks for running backs. Because like you're one of Caleb's that didn't look great.
I just don't see how you were worried about like St. Brown last year. He was a top 3 wide receiver. Gibbs was the number 1 overall. What's the issue? Because that could be a replacement.
I mean, he's not on the Bears though, right? He doesn't play for the
I
Chicago
just use
Bears.
it as an example. As an example right now. If he did go to the Bears with Ben Johnson, I would put him up in that Jahmyr Gibbs area, which would be like.
See, I think the appeal
4.
of Gibbs right now is that he's on a rookie contract, and the problem with Hall is that no matter what
Hall.
happens next year, he is not on a rookie contract anymore. So those second contract running backs, I'm always looking to sell them anyway. That's why I easily still have Achane. And here's the one, Jamie. This is the name I wanted to bring up because I know you and I are opposed on this. But again, if I had Breece Hall on my team, and this is the same Kyler Murray, Drake May argument, and I said, Jamie, you can have Breece Hall. What's the price difference for you between Breece Hall and the Bucky Irving that you have on your team?
Okay, so I have Bucky Irving, and you have Breece Hall, and you're coming to me to buy Bucky Irving
and sell you Breece Hall. And I'm just saying, I'm asking you, what's the price difference?
So
between Breece Hall
I would want going on Breece Hall. I would say that early second, mid, maybe 204. Because I would want like a Trey Harris, Jaden Higgins, and Bucky to move off of Breece Hall.
You have no, I'm selling you Breece Hall.
Oh, you're selling me Breece Hall.
You've done this twice already. I've
So
told you.
I would give you Bucky Irving and like my 204, 207.
And that's why I think Breece Hall should be a sell.
Yeah.
You're telling
Smash
me
accept.
there's another running back on a team, and we might have passing down concerns with Irving as well, with crowded room, but who just started his rookie contract, just smashed, showed an incredibly efficient running style with a better offensive line. I might add. Like, I'll easily take Bucky Irving. And here's the thing, Jamie, the secret revealed. If ever we're in a league with this, like you could just you could have told me to add to Breece Hall, and I would do that to get Bucky Irving.
Yeah.
So just for context, I have Breece at RB7 and I have Bucky at RB12.
It's funny because they're almost reversed. I have Bucky at RB7 and I have Breece Hall at
So if I knew that and I knew you, I'd be like, well, give me Bucky and a mid-second for Breece Hall, right? Is that how that would go?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you Breece Hall for that Bucky Irving free, and I'll take that. I'll just take that free mid-second. But anyway, to that point, like, find managers with those dynamics, right? Like, because that's why I like to pose those questions. If I'm not sure, okay, I want to sell this player and buy this player. I go to that manager. I might just ask them, like, what's the price difference? And they might reveal something that, like in this case, man, I'd rather have Irving straight up for Hall, but they're actually willing to add to Irving to get Hall. Like, clearly, yeah, I'll take the best deal I can possibly get. Right? So that's why I like to pose those questions sometimes. Let the other manager reveal how they feel, right? Because I know how I feel is if I've got Hall and I see someone has Irving, I'll add to Breece Hall to go get Irving. Guaranteed to them probably accept the deal. But then it's also, is that could I have got something to add to this deal, right? And you never know, so you always ask. But again, ask it where you kind of force them to reveal some information.
Like I'm willing to buy Hall, and I'm also willing to sell him. So
right price.
Well, you have to have those conversations.
My final point about this is actually when I made that trade and picked Het, people actually thought I lost that trade. So which I felt not just like happy, like 50-50, like as it's gone on, I've like certainly rationalized to myself more, but the point to leave is like, this is a player, Breece Hall is a player with a lot of dynasty value. Just think of whether it's a way to make your team better with that value, if it's not in the form of Breece Hall.
And there's even some dude in the chat that said he'd love that trade.
I mean, to that point, like I was talking,
agree with him.
I'll take Henderson, Judkins, RJ Harvey all ahead of Breece Hall. So I'll sell Breece Hall for the 108 easily. And I guarantee myself getting one of those young running backs or Travis Hunter falls.
So who's our next sell on this list?
That's a great. Now we don't have to talk about him. We've gone through enough of the episode. We can skip this sell, right, Jay? Because honestly, you talk about him all the time as a sell.
Oh my God.
If we had a show last year, this would have been your sell last year. Jamie, you've waited all episode to talk about Kyren Williams. Go ahead. Talk about Kyren Williams. Rahul's getting his blanket. He's getting his pillow. He's got to go for a nap. Let Jamie go on his 2-hour tirade here.
Yeah, so
go ahead, Jamie.
Kyren Williams, he's my arch nemesis, right? Fun story. So last year, I bet Kyren Williams anytime touchdowns twice during the season, right? Both weeks I did that. He did not get a touchdown.
Self-serving. Did you follow my goal line guide? Like, were those good goal line guide weeks?
I don't remember. But at the time, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna follow his touchdowns. So there's a betting show on Fanspeak with Justin Bruni, and we had a running joke throughout the whole show all year. So when the host said that they were gonna bet a Kyren touchdown, I would purposely not bet the touchdown so it hits for them. So anyway, I'm selling Kyren. Nobody's talking about the fact that Kyren Williams doesn't have a contract after 2025. You just brought that up, Kyle, and our last guy. So that's a huge red flag for me. Yes, he is in a great offense, but only producing because of massive volume. His efficiency actually dropped in 2024 down to 4.1 yards per carry, with the previous year at 5 yards per carry. Now, the backfield right now is more crowded because they got Blake Corum last year, and now they added Jacquez Hunter, right? And McVay is gonna want to see what he has in those guys, like with the future in his mind. So like that could take away some snaps, especially at the end of the year when like Kyren's gonna get beat up all season, right? And McVay knows he's not gonna re-sign Kyren. So he's going to want to see what he has in Jacquez Hunter and Blake Corum. So that could take away some snaps from good old Kyren Williams. Like if you're holding Kyren right now, like now is the time to sell while his value is still at its highest. Like the market value, right? I looked at it and it says you could sell him and get the 107, 108 value.
And
that's a smash pick right there. Like the consensus, I looked at the consensus. It has him at RB11. I personally have him at RB18, and he's going to be falling. Like the way people view him, like as a top 12 running back, you can get a top 20 wide receiver like a Tet McMillan we just talked about, and Odunze, a Rashee Rice, a Zay Flowers. Go grab those type of players. Give up Kyren Williams because his production's going to dip. He's not efficient. Like if you need a quarterback, I'll go buy Dak or Jared Goff straight up. Give up Kyren. I was never in on Kyren, so I can't unload any of my shares because I don't have any. But if I did have him, right now is the time to sell before his value plummets. You got to remember, like if you drafted Kyren in rookie drafts, he was basically free. So why wouldn't you, like, you already got 2 awesome seasons out of him and you can flip him for a first round talent? That's a no-brainer in my eyes. Go do it. Get rid of Kyren. Go grab a freaking amazing talent right now that you can use for the next 5-6 years. What do you guys think? Kyren Williams, do you have him?
Well, Jamie, I mean, you talk about arch nemesis, which clearly Kyren is.
Yeah.
And I find, what'll be hilarious, Jamie? You know what's going to happen? The Bears are going to move on from DeAndre Swift, and you think Roschon's going to get the job, and they're going to sign Kyren Williams to start way ahead of Roschon. And the whole year you're going to complain about how Kyren's going to get a bunch of touches that Roschon.
Well, the funny part is
playing the speculation here.
No, the funny part is Roschon Johnson is a better running back than Kyren Williams. So go ahead and bring Kyren in. He'll be so is
Blake Corum, right?
Well, I like Jacquez Hunter. Like Jacquez Hunter is
I had a pretty good
exact
tape grade on him.
Hunter is the exact same type of player that Kyren is, and so is Corum in a way. So you have McVay. He's bringing in people that are almost exactly the same kind of running style, same kind of player to replace him. And that just makes me think that he's not going to get the volume on another team.
Yeah. And I think, to be fair, Jamie, as much as Kyren's been your arch nemesis on this several years long debate now, it seems like between you and I and Kyren Williams, I've been your arch nemesis because I've been a staunch Kyren Williams defender. To be honest, Jamie, I can't really contest much of what you're saying because I think, to be fair, to a certain extent, the principle of why Breece Hall is a sell, I think, is the same reason Kyren's a sell. You said last year the rookie contract. I guess I have more faith in Kyren producing this year than Hall, just based on that offense, based on his role, which is why I have him ahead of Hall. But he's 2 spots. Like I agree with you, he shouldn't be a top 12 running back because I have him RB13. So he's not a top 12, right? But to your point, like it's the same thing I said. I would easily sell Kyren for the 108. I'll draft one of these second-round running backs this year, whether it's RJ Harvey, Henderson, Judkins. It doesn't really matter. Whoever falls to 108, I will take them easily over Kyren Williams. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to lie.
We're finally in agreement on a Kyren Williams debate, Jamie. Good job.
I do want to say, I'm not going to lie. I have drafted Kyren on underdog in like the late 3rd round. And I look at that as a value because they are going to use him. They're going to run him into the ground, right?
And that was the one thing I wanted to push back on. They might actually, you said are they going to want to give Coleman and Hunter some touches?
Well,
I almost
I'm
think the
saying
opposite. If what you just said, I think might be true. If the Rams aren't going to plan on re-signing Kyren Williams and they're going for it, they might, okay, let's give him every touch. Whatever happens next year, we don't care. So let's use every ounce of football we can out of him this year. I think that's maybe
I agree, and I see what you're saying, but
the Jets could do that too with Breece Hall. To your point of why Breece Hall might be better than Kyren.
So I have Kyren Williams over Breece Hall on underdog.
The year one production, right? So I think
I do see a scenario where like McVay at the end of the year, going into the playoffs, he's going to want to rest Kyren because they beat the crap out of him all year. But then the coach that just has 2 running backs on his roster that he spent some draft capital on is going to want to see what he has in those 2 players. So they could take away some snaps from Kyren to keep him healthy. At the same time, McVay's going to evaluate Corum and Jaquez Hunter in that span and be like, do I need to go running back next year, or can I use these 2?
Well, McVay's actually dropped a running back every single year, funnily enough.
It's interesting. All the way back to that. Now, what if they can't rest him though? Like, what if they're playing week 18 to like win their division or make the playoffs? And so, like, even week 18, when we don't even care about for fantasy, they're still going full tilt with Williams. So they certainly do it in week 17. I think that's also a likely scenario because last year they did. They won the division with some weeks to go and they could rest guys. I don't think the NFC West is going to be collectively as bad to allow the Rams to be able to do that either. Maybe they are. Maybe the Rams just run away with the division again. But I speculate that they won't, so that they might be forced to play Kyren right up until the end of the regular season as a way to get it.
Could be. But then again, late in the season, since Kyren is horrible at efficiency, he's already had all those touches all year long. I just don't see him holding up. But we'll see.
Yes, we'll find out.
Like I said, I have him top 12 in redraft. I have him at 18th, the 20th, in Dynasty.
So even the Kyren Williams hater can't like they have to have him at a certain level. To that point, Jamie, almost everyone's going to value Kyren at a certain level. So that's what makes him a good sell in essence, is that like you will be able to find buyers for him most of the time. And like Rahul, to your point, and you could talk about Kyren, but like Breece Hall, there's enough dynasty hype. The way he people really liked him as a prospect, and then he smashed immediately as a rookie, even though that season ended prematurely with an injury. We remember that 100-yard receiving game that happened like the week before he got injured. Like, oh, he just had 100 rushing yards and 100 receiving yards.
Yeah.
Like, those type of insane people still have that with Hall, and I think that's what makes them both good sells. But go ahead, talk about Kyren Williams.
Yeah, I think I agree that Kyren is someone I'm wary of heading into next year. I think to add something new, because I do agree with all the points that both of you have shared, is like I did the receiving split for Breece Hall. Kyren Williams, a lot of his production came from rushing touchdowns, of which he had 14 last year. You know, his pass game work fell completely off a cliff. His breakout season is very involved, especially in the screen game. He had a lot of explosive plays catching the ball, and that just kind of went away in the way the Rams ran their system last year. I'm in on Devontae Adams as being a better weapon, another weapon at the goal line. It's like it was DeMarcus Robinson as their like go-to guy in the red zone, and now you have one of the best of these last like 10 years.
It was always Cooper Kupp, but like Adams is probably better at what they want in the red zone than Cooper Kupp did.
Mm-hmm.
Cooper Kupp is just I can get open pretty quickly in the red zone. Like Adams is gonna do that, but also like be able to like contest in the red zone probably better than Kupp was. So yeah, I agree there. Maybe there's less running in the red zone because truthfully, I look at the target share for the Rams since Stafford's been there, but specifically the 3 years with Kyren Williams, 11.9%, 11.8, and 10.2. Like, this is one of the lowest teams for target share to the running backs consistently over the course of Williams' career. So that part is probably not changing because Stafford showed that he's not throwing to the running backs very much.
That's probably not changing. His efficiency, which has been pretty terrible, is not changing. One, the Rams will hope it fixes, but we don't know, is he had an abnormal number of fumbles, especially critical fumbles last year. How much does that play a part? One thing that keeps, the Kyren hypothesis alive for me is we can all judge him on how good of a running back he is, but I think Kyren Williams is like quietly one of the better NFL players out there on the field that we have in fantasy football. And what I mean by that is he is an elite pass protector. He's someone who's very, very well trusted by both Stafford and McVay, and that could keep him on the field. In addition to the fact that McVay really does not run committees. He could want to evaluate two young running backs, like Jamie has just said, two running backs, especially Hunter, who could be certainly more explosive than Kyren Williams. But when push comes to shove, like Kyren Williams is probably going to get at least 70% of the work. If he loses some touchdowns, like he loses some volume, is he going to be a less smash of a play? Yes. It's going to depend on the price for me. Like I agree with everything you said, but if we come to like August and he's going as like the running back like 15 or 16 in seasonal leagues, then I'm gonna want to buy into him.
Yeah, I'm on that too.
Yeah,
he might be a better buy in redraft for this year, and maybe try and sell your dynasty shares and cast him in redraft leagues. Like I sometimes like to do that with my player portfolios too. Like, okay, I'm gonna roster him in this format and on this format because the price dictates it's just better to do that. Kelsey's been a guy like for years where I'm more willing to reach in redraft than I am roster him in dynasty.
So my final thought on Kyren Williams is like 30 years from now when I'm on my deathbed, the last thought in my mind is
live a little longer.
Like, dang you, Kyren Williams. The two times that I actually trusted you I put money on your touchdowns, you failed me. That's why I'm out on him.
Well, you know what? If you win a major best ball league this year with one of your Kyren Williams team, then you can that'll be the redemption, right? So
I did have
those teams, Jamie. Those teams you've already drafted and can't do anything about from now on. Go, Jamie. But Breece Hall, Kyren Williams, they're in my rankings with two other guys that are also
fantasy dog.
James Cook and I was gonna say K-Dog, Ken Walker, right? But fantasy dog.
I love fantasy dog.
How are you?
Always in the chat, talking to me in the chat. Dude's a legend. Like, you think I'm in all the chats? No, this guy is the one that's in every single chat.
So you're saying all the chats have a dog in them?
Yes.
Fantasy dog. Okay.
Yep. Like, this dude's a legend.
So I'll just say, like, I think Kyron's got a bit of dog in him, but Ken Walker's a guy I really like too. But they're all coming off their rookie contracts after this year. So I think that whole lot of players are set. So Kyren, Hall, James Cook, Ken Walker, got them all basically all next to each other in Dynasty. And to Jamie's point, I would rather have these guys that are going in the first round of rookie drafts, these second rounders that were just drafted, Travion Henderson, RJ Harvey, Quinshon Judkins. So you can sell just for running back straight up for them. But as you pointed out, both of you might be able to get good wide receivers for these players too. Maybe not CeeDee Lamb, but we got a trade of the week this week. We actually technically have two, but they are connected by one player, and it's what to do with CeeDee Lamb in Dynasty. Like, what can you achieve with CeeDee Lamb? I mean, other than all the fantasy points he's probably going to score on your team. So, Jamie, this was a league you were in. I think you said there was a league you commissioned, actually.
Yeah, this is the league.
Superflex, start 11. It's a PPR league. Sorry, Rahul, no half PPR. But tight ends get a point and a half per reception, so a bit of tight end premium. And then some quarterback scoring is different. 5 points for passing touchdown instead of the conventional 4. -1 for interceptions. 0.05 per passing yard. Typically, it's 0.04. So, I think Jamie mentioned it when he was explaining the settings. Instead of 25 yards for every point, you only need 20 yards for every point. And there's also big play bonuses. I think it's like 40-plus yard touchdowns. You get an extra point. So, Jamie, do you want? I read off all the settings. Do you want me to read off the trade too, or do you want to share this?
No,
trade?
go ahead, read it off, because I almost reversed this trade until I actually got an explanation from one of the owners, and I made him pay the following year, or else I was going to reverse it.
Well, I mean, that's okay. That's a huge discussion. We're already an hour and a half in, but that's if you're playing in a money league, that should be kind of the minimum. I've seen some leagues that go to the extreme. If you sell any future pick You
Yes.
sell your 27 fourth, you're paying your 27 dues immediately, right? Like that you might not have to go that extreme, but yeah, as soon as the future firsts are involved, I think I
Right.
get a pretty hard line in any money league. You don't need to pay in advance unless you sell your future first. You sell your future
right.
first and you leave, makes it a lot harder to fill that orphan. And it's
So,
also
Kyle, go
unfair
ahead.
to that manager. But yes, right,
Go
the
ahead and
trade.
read the trade off, and I will
You're
give
right.
you my initial thought.
Yeah, so there's the 26 first involved. That's why we're mentioning this. But as mentioned, with CD Lamb, and that's what's going to connect the two trades we're going to talk about today. And this, on one side, you have CD Lamb and CJ Stroud with that 26 first and a 26 second. So 4 pieces on that side. 2 players, 2 picks. The other side, 3 assets. 2 players, 1 pick. Brian Thomas Jr., Jaden Daniels, so same positions, and then a 26 second. So once again, CD Lamb, CJ Stroud, 26 first, 27 second, 26 second. 4, Brian Thomas Jr., Jaden Daniels, and a 26 second. And I realized I forgot to put the comma after Brian Thomas. There's always something wrong.
That's all right. So those 26 seconds, those are going to be like 1 or 2 picks apart. So you kind of have to eliminate the seconds, right? So it's pretty much Jaden Daniels and Brian Thomas for CeeDee Lamb, Stroud, and like the 110 to 112 for next year.
I was going to judge that these teams are trading like CD Lamb and Jaden Daniels, Brian. Like these are good assets. So my first assumption is both of these teams are good, and that
they're both in the top 3 to 4 contenders in this league.
Also, apparently, Jamie, you are the man, not CD Lamb, not even.
I
Jaden
am the
Daniels,
man because the only reason both these guys can't beat the league is because I won 2 years ago and I came in second last year. The guy that won last year came in second the year before. So this league belongs to me and my dude Kenny. But so I'm thinking initially Jaden Daniels and Brian Thomas. So yes, you are going up to, let's say you have Jaden Daniels as the number 1 or number 3 quarterback in Dynasty. CJ Stroud, let's say he's quarterback 10, right? That difference between quarterback 1 and quarterback 10 is a whole lot more than going from CeeDee Lamb, who is wide receiver, let's call him wide receiver 3, to Brian Thomas Jr., who let's call him wide receiver 7. So you're tearing down 3 spots at wide receiver, but you're tearing up 10 spots at running back, and you're only giving up next year's 110. That makes absolutely no sense to me. In my mind, I would put the 101 on that CeeDee Lamb, CJ Stroud side, and this would be a straight even trade for me. So the guy who got CeeDee Lamb and Stroud lost a 101 value, giving up Jaden Daniels, Brian Thomas Jr. And let's say Jaden Daniels does regress. Whip-de-doo, he's going to regress back down to what? Quarterback 5? And that's what we're going to call a regression.
I think we talked about that maybe even as far back as episode 1. If he
goes
from a 5.2% touchdown rate to, let's say, 4.6, that's where Stroud was as a rookie. Stroud's also not rushing for 800 yards, so it's
Stroud at
Daniels
most
would
go
have
for
to far pretty
215, 220.
Be less than Stroud. And I think I agree with Fancy Dog here. Stroud is QB 10. I think that's kind of close to where I have him, 9-10.
Yeah, that's where I have him. Jaden Daniels, I have at 3. And as Jaden Daniels as quarterback 3, if you add that 101, so put Genty with Stroud and Lamb, and next year's 210 or first round, which is 110, 109 maybe, that would be an even trade to me. So I think the difference is a Genty in this trade. What do you guys think?
But I think to the point of like the tier downs, I think like knowing what your tiers are, even like you mentioned the ranking disparities, like, Stroud to Daniels, I say you're moving like 9 spots because I do have Jaden Daniels at QB1. And, I think I've got a 5-spot difference between Lamb at wide receiver 3 and Thomas at wide receiver 8. So just like the sheer number of ranking spots, it's a bigger drop from Daniels to Stroud. But if we go back to the tiers, and face off, I'm pretty sure he's got Josh Allen actually. Joe Burrow. As we were talking like who's 1-2. I think for Rahul and Jamie, you both have Allen and Jackson, I think.
Yeah, and
That's-
you also
yeah,
have to
that's how I
remember
have it.
you get points per rushing first downs.
Oh, I
So
forgot to put that
Daniels
one in
is
here.
going to
Yeah.
rush, right?
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, well, that makes a difference because, I mean, well, I can get onto it, but I was mainly considering, and I can't mathematically calculate like how much more of an impact does 5-point passing touchdown and just that slight like pass yard bump give to like a pocket quarterback like Stroud. Does it make that much of a difference?
Daniels threw more touchdowns last year than Stroud, so I actually think that the difference actually increases the better quarterbacks. And even though Daniels is a rushing quarterback, I still view him as a better touchdown producer than Stroud. At least he proved that 1 year. Maybe that's a 1 year fluke, but 5.2% is insane as a rookie. If Daniels just continues to do that, like Stroud will be hard pressed to ever match him as a touchdown producer. So if anything, I actually think that's a further on the Daniels side. I'm pushing up the elite quarterbacks higher. In these 5-point passing touchdown leagues, like I'm not afraid to raise Daniels and Lamar because I think they can be those elite touchdown producers as well as the rushing side. So I think that's it. But the whole point I was going to make about the rankings is the tier difference. And all of us had Daniels in the top tier quarterback. None of us had Stroud. So all of us admit regardless of ranking difference, there's a tier difference between Daniels and Stroud. CeeDee Lamb, if I remember correctly, was not a unanimous tier 1 wide receiver. And Jamie, I think you were the holdout. You had Lamb in tier 2 at wide receiver. Is that correct?
I think he was number 3 because 1 and 2.
I think all of us had him at 3, but
yeah.
you made that line distinction that top tier was just Jason Shepard.
Yes.
The LSU guys. I can't say the names. Case and Jefferson. That was not that hard. So I go back to your second tier, Jamie. Who's another receiver, perhaps one involved in this trade that you also had in the same tier as CeeDee?
Same. No, I'm pretty sure I had BTJ at 7, which was
my point in the same tier, right? Like that was part of the tier 2 receiver. Or you had the weird tier. Right? Like,
I had
tier, and you were trying to throw these half tiers in and really just complicate the episode for no reason. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
I remember that. We had mini tiers.
Because I can't put CeeDee Lamb in the same tier as Puka. Like I think it was CeeDee Lamb, Puka, Neighbors maybe in the same tier, and then it was like St. Brown, Brian Thomas, Nico Collins.
Which again, the whole point of that was to London your top 2 tiers, and Jamie's just throwing extra tiers in. Thanks, Jamie. Anyway, okay, never mind. My point's ruined. I'm talking too long. Rahul, did you want to say anything about this trade?
I really don't see Genty as like the value gap between these two, and like to simplify this trade like a little bit more, like CeeDee Lamb versus Brian Thomas, like let's just say like feel free to push back, but I think Brian Thomas plus like a second might get you CeeDee Lamb. So like you can even take those players out and say a second. Does CJ Stroud, does it take a late first plus a late second or a second to tear down from Jaden Daniels to CJ Stroud? We all might like fall on different sides of that. Like, is it 1 + 2 like the gap? But I think breaking it down like that, I actually really don't think this trade is too far off. I think I was the highest on CJ Stroud in our quarterback episode. I want to say like maybe QB 7, like right after like Mahomes, or 7 or 8, like next to Herbert is where I had Stroud. And I do see regression coming. I think the O-line play this year was last year was god awful, and they added quite a few weapons. Of course, they had Diggs and Dell, but there are a lot of injuries in between. Not all 3 of them on the field a lot. Maybe I'm the highest on Stroud, but I think when you say it's like a first plus a second in the gap between the two, it's really not that far off. I don't think it's a Genty.
Hold on, no, the seconds are actually kind of washed because the guy that's getting Daniels is also getting the better second.
No, I know. You take the second that are on the screen off. Where the extra second came is like, what does it take to get from Brian Thomas to CeeDee Lamb? Like, just say Brian Thomas plus a second could be CeeDee Lamb. I see what
you're saying, yeah.
So that's where it's like it's basically Jaden Daniels for CJ Stroud, a 26 first, and that like extra 26 second, right? Is like, if I rationalize it like that, I really don't think it's too far off. Like, I could see the tier down making sense. Like, if it's a very asset poor team with Jaden Daniels, you kind of want to expand it that way. Maybe that's not the exact form, but if you want to up your team to Jaden Daniels, I'd also probably drop that first to the second. So I kind of think it's in the range, personally.
So when I asked the guy to explain himself, he wrote this whole paragraph saying that he has Stroud at like top 5, 6, like above a Mahomes.
Which, I mean, fancy
Which
dogs.
then,
7 at most.
if that is the case, maybe it does bring it a little bit closer. So I did let the trade go, and I just said, make sure you pay your 26 dues.
And I mean that guy's getting the extra first, so they've got nothing to worry about. But yeah.
But in my mind, he's giving up this year's first with Genty.
Whole paragraph. Apparently, Fancy Dogs likes to write whole paragraphs. Say, write him here. We love interacting with you, dog. Can actually say that and like literally be addressing someone as their name. It feels kind of cool. I mean, I'm not really that cool. But Jaden Daniels is very cool, also very hot. Like hot on the dynasty markets. And I mean, I've got him as the QB1 overall. Apparently, Fantasy Dog disagrees with the Josh Allen as the QB1 team. So I might have some support. I don't know. Is it Jaden Daniels? Are you with me, Fantasy Dog? But to get the number 1 overall asset in dynasty, it's going to be tough to overpay to get him. You might have to appropriately pay top end price. And so, to me, anything that you're getting Jaden Daniels and it's not a massive overpay, I'm probably just taking the Daniels side. So my bias when I first saw this was, I think it's Daniels side. I do think it's pretty close because the way you mathed it out, Rahul, is Stroud first and second worth Daniels. That probably is pretty close to fair. And I think it's fair enough to where Jamie's point, if this was Lamb Stroud, the 101, I also didn't put a comma after Stroud. Man, that was really good. Lamb Stroud, the 101, I probably am going to take that Genty Lamb and Stroud side.
Yeah, sir. Definitely. That
I think would push it over the edge. So, I think it's a great trade, but I think it also symbolizes one thing you can do with CeeDee Lamb. In this case, it's use CeeDee Lamb to get the best quarterback you possibly can. A trade happened in one of my leagues during the rookie draft, and someone went the opposite direction, tiered down from CeeDee Lamb. The 12-team Superflex, start 10. We are half PPR. I will like that. But we have 1 point for tight end receptions. So a bit of tight end premium. We also have half point for first downs. And it's, I guess, called a Hyperflex 1-1-1. QB, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end. Like 6 flex spots, one of which is a super flex, which makes it a super flex league. So the person selling CeeDee Lamb gave up Chiga Conquo and a 27-second, got 5 assets back. Devontae Adams, Romeo Doubs, Kenneth Walker, the 107, which I'm pretty sure they used to draft Judkins, and the 207, which they used to draft Jalen Milroe. So I read that again. It's Lamb, a Conquo, and a 27-second for Adams, Dubs, Walker, 107, and 207.
And to start 10?
Yeah.
That's a tough one, but just like hearing it, I'd probably still stick with the Lamb side. I think that's still splitting like an elite asset into too many pieces, especially ones aside from the 107, which is a cornerstone dynasty asset. Devontae and Ken Walker are 2 players I really like this year. There's no guarantees about their production in a year's time. I think CeeDee Lamb, I think this is gonna be a top 5 wide receiver year in, year out. So just like hearing it explained like that, I'll stick with the elite asset.
All right, so let me get this straight. CeeDee Lamb, a 2026 second, and Chiga Conquo, 2027 second, and Chiga Conquo.
Yeah.
The other guys getting Devontae Adams, Romeo Doubs, Kenneth Walker.
107.
Oh, and 107.
And the 207. So 207.
Quinshon Judkins and Jalen Milroe. And I believe this trade was made when the 107 was on the clock. So this was someone specifically targeting Judkins, not just blindly making the trade and happy with who they got.
Okay, so 107 is Judkins. Yeah.
That's a tough.
Jamie
it's a
is
tough
pretty
one.
smart.
That
To
is
your point,
very
Fantasy
tough.
Dog, Jamie's really smart, and he's using that smart brain to think right now.
I think it's a dead even trade. It's the fact that
Yeah.
like, do you want like 2 20s and a 10, or do you want like $20 bill and like 30 singles? It adds up, right? It's just you got that top end CD Lamb.
It's just like not. It's like not the kind of trade I want to make with
I wouldn't.
CD Lamb. You know,
Yeah,
like CD Lamb.
The same point I just made about Jaden Daniels, right? Like if I'm selling Lamb,
Yeah,
it like if I'm buying Lamb, it's not an overpay, like a massive overpay. I'll just take the Lamb side. In this case, like him being the best asset. The Daniels, he's
you
not
said
the
it's a
best.
start 10, right?
Yes.
So that's the cusp. But if it's start 9, hands down, give me Lamb. Start 10, it's where I start thinking,
Getting 2 extra assets.
getting 2 extra, like, but with Lamb being in that top tier, I'm taking Lamb because there's no one in that other side. No Adams, no Dubes, Walker, Judkins, whoever getting at 207. No one in that is going in a second round of a startup, but Lamb is. So give me Lamb.
He's probably going to first round, to be honest.
Yeah, I would probably consider him at the end of the first.
Anytime you get first round startup assets, and that seemed like they're going to be first round startup assets for a while.
So
I kind of lean when I saw it go through. My first thought was, damn, maybe I should have, because I was in negotiation to try and get CD Lamb. They were trying to get 2 firsts, DK Metcalf, like 2 second, like what ultimately ended up getting accepted for Lamb. Part of me thought, well, I'm glad I didn't pay what I was offered Lamb, because that seemed like more than what this was. So, but should I have been more aggressive at Lamb? So I think on the surface, biasly, I wanted the Lamb side because I was specifically targeting Lamb. Ultimately, ended up a lesser trade for Barkley. Didn't give up as much for Barkley as it would have for Lamb, which made sense for that dynasty value. Fantasy Dog mentioning that he had to write it all down. Luckily, you don't have to because we're here every Wednesday night live.
Yeah.
On the Dynasty Six Pack Network. So with my co-hosts, Rahul Natarajan, Jamie Perog, I'm Kyle Senra. Any final messages for Fantasy Dog and any of the other viewers and listeners?
Buy low, sell high.
Apparently, Fantasy Dog is saying sell Aiyuk. Sorry, Rahul, you're overruled in grand quality.
That's tragic. I know. I was queuing up a buy Brandon Aiyuk right there, so I'll just switch it to say great show, guys. Honestly, one of my favorites so far. It's nice I love talking about rookies, but now I feel like we're flexing a little bit of different dynasty muscles with shows like these. So had a really good time.
Yeah, and we'll again be back next week and every week, as mentioned here on the Fantasy Six Pack. I know Fantasy Dog earlier mentioned he liked, subscribed. So yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate anyone who joins us here on YouTube for the comments. Love interacting with people. Again, subscribe to the channel. FantasySixPack.com is a Fantasy Six Pack Discord. Everything you need for your fantasy sports. Yep. We're gonna sport on out of here. That's pretty awful. Bye. I'll just say that. Buy and sell, but we'll see.
Bye.
Goodbye. We'll see you next time on the Dynasty Six.
Bye-bye.